current economy. You know, I do that every month in the newsletter, and a lot of times I just put bullets, but you sometimes don't understand why I put that bullet in there and why that's positive. So I wanted us to get a feel before we get through with the next, be 40 minutes to an hour. I want you to feel very good about what's coming. How many were in real estate back in 80, 81, and 82? Billy, you were there. Do you remember that the business got blocked because of the high interest rates? Do you remember that? And it was a real struggle. We were taking boats in trade, and we were doing all kinds of things to make transactions work. Do you remember that? All right. It's different because the interest rates are at rock bottom right now, but the same attitude is there. The public doesn't think they can come out and buy or sell a piece of property. And we have to understand the nature of the consumer before we can then help them, I think. And that's where I'm going to go. I want to try to get a mindset on the consumer. And if we can understand that mindset, then maybe we can go ahead and figure out a way to work with them so they'll decide that they want to do business with us because no one else is working with them that way. So that's the tone I'm trying to set up in this. So we're going to kind of take a close look at it. Is that your dog, Carlton? Somebody sent me that, and I thought that was your puppy at home. Well, our meeting this week is focused on capturing more of the business available in the marketplace. That's the whole intent of it. And I haven't seen one of these in a while, and I'd sure like to start seeing a bunch of these again. Now, there's some folks in the room that have, and Maurice is with us. Maurice, raise your hand. Maurice Sykes, he's part of our panel this afternoon. Neat guy, and of course we talked about Craig, and Steve is here too, a great guy that's been in business a while and really has some wonderful things he can share with us. Those are the fellows that are looking at $100 bills. And I want to find out what they're doing so I can start looking at $100 bills too. Now, housing will continue to be one of the top needs of Americans. Everybody that took psychology heard of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Do you all remember that? Yeah. And it was what? Food, shelter, and clothing, and we happen to be in that business, the shelter business. Well, the pent-up demand is beginning to backfill. There are people right now that are living with their parents. There are folks that are in an apartment complex and they'd rather not be. People really want to own their own home. The third bullet there says that 2/3 of the people that live in apartment complexes would rather own than rent. Back in that period of time, Billy, that we're talking about, in 1982, I was on a group staff, and they did an analysis, and they found out that 1/3 of all properties sold in 1982 had wheels on them. That means they were mobile homes. Why would 1/3 of all properties sold in a year in real estate have wheels on them? And when you bought a mobile home, you didn't buy it from a realtor, you bought it from a car dealer license. Right? Same license you sell cars, you sell mobile homes with. And 1/3 of them were bought that year for housing, and everybody knows that when you drag a car off the lot, it depreciates immediately, right? Same thing is true with a mobile home. You pull it off the lot, what does it do? It goes down in value, and yet 1/3 of all closings were mobile homes. Why? Why would that occur?
People wanted their own home.
Exactly. You remember the old cliche, a man's home is his castle kind of thing? That is still prevalent today. People still want to have their own place, a place where they can dig in the dirt, mess around, paint the walls different colors if they want to, put wallpaper up that just scares you to death, but yet they go ahead and they do that. I mean, it's their house. They want to be able to do that. We've got a tremendous pent-up market out there that wants to get back. Now, I'm going to try to keep the message very simple, because if I can keep it simple, maybe you can keep it simple too as you're talking to the people, because they're confused. We need to take a leadership position in our marketplace and to sellers. And I just typed this out and I said, if you're serious about selling your house, then let us analyze what is competing against your property so that we can determine what needs to be done in order to position your property so that buyers are attracted to your property over others. I think that's where it's at. If you take a look at, let's say that this is a printout of everything that's listed in the Orlando market, the 9,000 listings, whatever it is, it's a bunch. I don't know if I made the number up. And this is the sheet of the solds. Which group you want to be in? You want to be in the group that's being marketed, you want to be in the sold side. Well, everybody says, I want to be over here. Well, to do that, then we need to figure out what your competition is doing. Take a look at your property, compare the two, and let's see what we can do to make yours be on this one sheet side instead of the stack like that that's competing against you. In any one time, what percentage of the listings in your market are actually going under contract? Is it under 10%? Under 5%? Yeah. It could be what? 2%? 1% of the listings that are in the market are actually going under contract? NAR says that our backlog is how much? 9 months? Yeah. Yeah. It may have spread out a little bit. It was 9 months. If you've looked at it recently, it may have spread a little bit more. In your county, in your board, it's a year. Okay. So if our strategy is, okay, let's make it real simple. Let's communicate with our sellers in such a way that they say, okay, if all I need to do is see what's out there in the marketplace and I'm going to compete against it, what do I need to do to make mine to where it's sellable? Okay, that makes it simple. All right, now let's discuss then what's on the consumer's mind. Let's take a look and see what we think is on the consumer's mind. Number one, there may be some folks who are afraid of their future. They may be hesitant to do anything in the market. Is that true in your market? Are people scared to death? Yeah. Are they? Yeah, paralysis, great word, Steve. There's paralysis. They're afraid to do things. What's causing the fear? The unknown, the uncertainty, right? And I didn't list them all, but I'd say one of them would be loss of purchasing power through increased taxes. I was sharing with someone earlier today that Jacksonville just made a wonderful decision to go ahead and raise our property tax 8% because they needed more money. All right, now think about the logic on this and what that does to the consumer. That 8% equates to about $45 million in the Jacksonville, Florida market. The size of government isn't changing. They just don't have the additional monies because property values have done what? Gone down, right? And they are, based on the assessments, they're now charging me 18.5 mils based on that. So they're short on cash. Now they tried to cut some things, and they did. But they couldn't get the police department, the fire department to negotiate a slight cut in pay. So they come back to the consumer and they say we need 8% to fill that gap. That $45 million, what happens when that $45 million gets pulled out of the Jacksonville market? Fewer people go to restaurants, fewer people buy shirts, fewer people buy a washer and dryers. What then happens to the general economy in Jacksonville? We're already at, Don, what did I tell you? The national rate is 9.7 and we're at 11.7 in Jacksonville. It's probably going to raise it up to what? 12, 13%? Right. So what are the people in Jacksonville thinking? Okay, all right, they just raised my property tax, and oh, by the way, we don't know whether or not the current tax system, I'm not going to call it the Bush tax cuts, don't want to go political, let's just say the current tax system. All right, they're afraid the current tax system is going to what? Change? And no matter where you are, everybody gets hit. Is that true? Yeah, no matter what bracket you're in, it creeps up. All right, so they're thinking, all right, my property tax is going to go up. I've got my income tax is going to go up. I don't know if inflation is going to break loose or not. And, you know, recently we just had additional fees put on top of things that I wasn't paying before, so that's out of pocket. And did you all notice traveling here yesterday or today that gas went up? Yeah. I'm going to talk about that in a minute. So these are the things that are operating on them that cause them to go into paralysis, like Steve talks about. Now, there is a pent-up demand that's building. Billy and I talked about it. It's there. When their attitude changes, it's going to open up. But what is it going to take to change the attitude? Now, before an external force comes on them that changes that attitude, maybe we can help change their attitude by knowing some things. That's where I'm going on this. All right, so let's take a look. Now that we know what is on the consumer's mind, can we find some good news? Well, first of all, our industry is one of the major engines in this economy. It's going to be around. It's going to continue to be around. And what good news we can provide the consumer that may convince them to buy or sell? Well, we're going to talk about that. First is lower interest rates, and they're probably going to get a little bit lower. The 30-year mortgages, when I looked 3 days ago, was 4.35. The 15 was 3.85, and the 10-year bond has been fluctuating anywhere and is still just barely above 2.4 to 2.8. Why do I keep talking about the 10-year bond? Why is that so important? Because that's what drives the interest rate. And as long as this thing is staying as low as it is, we're going to have interest rates that are like that. It's gimme. But what are some other things that are good? Liquidity still drives the market. The people are getting their liquidity turned around to where they have some. The stock market is working its way higher. Matter of fact, it was almost at 11,000 yesterday. Housing prices are moving upward again. And even foreclosed properties are inching up. Have you noticed that? Yeah, Craig, you're nodding your head because you work that market. Right. They've bottomed, and now the value of foreclosed properties is going up. People may not know what is waiting. People may not know that waiting to purchase may result in what? They're going to have to pay more for the house than if they bought now. And so it's a positive to talk to say, you know, you really need to buy now. We're having some trends that are beginning to occur. Regular resale properties bottomed out 6 or 8 months ago. Now foreclosures and short sales are starting to work their way up, which is a good sign. And inflation continues to be flat, and it should be flat through the rest of the year, which is good news. Don't know what's going to happen next year, but this year it's going to stay flat. There's actually some deflation out in the marketplace, which is holding prices down. Guess who's buying in America? Foreigners. Well, if foreigners are, why can't we buy in America, right? I mean, if these guys are coming over and buying properties, why can't we get our people to buy? They see something we don't. What is it that they see that we don't see?
A great deal.
A great deal? Right. A super investment. In some cases, property values are down. How much are they down in Melbourne right now? If I were to buy a condo 3 years ago and buy that same condo now, what would I pay in a difference?
Probably about 50%.
About 50% off. Okay? And so some people are looking at that and say, boy, there's a tremendous opportunity. Your property. Gene was telling me that there are some log homes that were on the market for 400 grand, and now you can pick them up for 100 and something.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and right next to Dolly World. Right next to Dolly World.
Such a deal.
Such a deal. We have for you.
That's right. Furnish, clean it up, and put
Yeah.
it on the rental program.
Yep.
You know, we're putting them on the rental programs for the banks now. We just did one.
Stu just said that they're putting their rental properties that the banks are giving them on the market now, which is
Foreclosed property.
foreclosed that they're having to rent. Well, gas is $2.69. I missed that. I thought it'd be $2.69. Running up, I saw $2.75.
Man.
I mean, as I was moving north, they were changing the signs. It was unbelievable. Well, and have you noticed that banks are still stingy?
Absolutely.
Do you all understand why they're being stingy? You don't understand that? Let me explain that.
It's scaring us.
Let me explain this.
The same thing.
It's really simple. Okay. If I'm a bank and I go to the feds and want to borrow money, what do I pay for that money right now? How many basis points? Between 25 and 50 basis points. Right. Okay? So I go borrow $100,000, and I'm only paying a quarter of a point to a half a point to borrow that. I can turn right around and buy a bond from the government and get what on it? 2.5?
Yeah,
2.5?
Yeah.
Maybe 2.75, depending on the length of time. I might even be able to go out to 3% on that. What's the margin difference? 2.5%?
Yeah.
And it's guaranteed.
Wow. Yeah.
There is no risk. All right?
Yeah.
Got me so far?
Yeah.
So now I can go and borrow, and I can roll that around and buy, and now I'm paying the interest, and out of the money I'm getting, I'm still netting 2% or 2.25%, okay?
Yeah.
Month in and month out. Maurice shows up. I want to borrow some money. Well, let me take a look at your credit score. Okay. I won't say what it is because I don't know. But we look at his credit score, and they go, all right, and what do you do for a living? Oh, I'm in real estate. Okay. All right, now let's see, credit score, real estate, and what is it you're trying to buy? And you tell them, they go, oh my gosh. I'm sorry, Mr. Sykes, at this time we're just not in a position to loan. Now, if they go out and borrow the money, to loaning the money, what is the spread on what they borrow versus loaning you for that particular house? Does anybody know what the spread is? Yeah, about 1.5 to 1.8% spread. I can get 2.25% by doing what?
Yeah.
What I just explained, and yet I'll get 1.8%, maybe 2 if I squeak it, out of him, and guess what the risk is on him? It's a lot higher than the feds. So which way do I go? And that's the sadness of what's occurring right now, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's what's hurting us, is that it's hard for people that want to get in and buy a house. How many are really struggling getting those properties closed? Anybody's hands going up?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, man. Well, that's also the good news is on this is that we know the banks are squeaky. That's good news. And we need to explain it to the consumer. They need to understand why they can't get the loans they need. They need to understand what the banks are doing.